in Zechariah chapter 8, verses 22 and 23. 22 says this, ובאו עמים רבים וגויים עצומים לבקש את אדוני צבאות בירושלים וכלות את פני אדוני. Now this verse here, I remember one of the first times that my dear friend David Demian and I connected was in a big conference in Jerusalem, just as it said here, which was called the Conference 822, which was named after this verse, Zechariah 8:22. Why? Because some of our friends in China and other huge nations in Asia were saying, well, it talks here about huge, enormous peoples. That must be us. So they wanted to fulfill this verse, huge nations coming from Asia and around the world, coming to Jerusalem to seek the face of the Lord. And we did that. It was amazing. Actually, we filled the International Convention Center in Jerusalem. This was in 2014. At that time, it was before the arena was built, and it was the largest meeting place in Jerusalem. It was a wonderful time of worship. Asians, Westerners, Arabs, Jews, we were all together. It was a super time, and this was a fulfillment. כה אמר אדוני צבאות בימים ההם אשר יחזיקו 10 אנשים מכל לשונות הגויים ויחזיקו בכנף איש יהודי לאמור נלכה עמכם כי שמרנו אלוהים עמכם. Now it's interesting, part of that was filled specifically with Yeshua in the new covenant, because people would come when we'd walk and they would come and touch the hem of his garment and they would be healed. On the other hand, the context of this is things that have to do with the end times and of nations coming around. So it's not just referring to Yeshua himself. I believe it's referring something about Jewish people returning after 2,000 years of exile, of having a special role in the end times. Now there's a contrast here between huge nations that we see in verse 22 and Jewish people in verse 23, which is the smallest of all nations. And there's an interplay throughout the whole plan of God, throughout the whole Bible, of the relationship between Israel and the nations. And there's an idea of this, I don't know if it's a philosophical idea or a theological idea, but it's called the tension between universality and particularity. There's something about the Bible that's very particular, having to do with one nation group and one group of people. But there's something about it that's universal. It's for anybody at any time. So which one is true? Is the Bible message universal or is it particular? And the answer, of course, it is both. First of all, in Yeshua himself, he's the Son of God. He's the Savior of mankind. But he's also a human being. He was born from one mother. He's got a mommy. He grew up in one place. He ate food. He had a singular body that he lived in. Yeshua, Jesus himself, is both a universal person, figure, but he's also a particular human being. And this is that a conflict? Is it a paradox? Well, actually, it should be something beautiful. The dynamic between the beauty of the particularity of Yeshua being one person and his universality of being the Son of God for everyone, that's the beauty and the centrality of who he is. I think that's also true for us as the people of God. There's arguments. Who are the chosen people? Is it the Jews? Is it the Christians? Well, look, I think here we also have this idea of universality and particularity. There were particular promises made to the Jewish people throughout the law and the prophets, but then through faith in Yeshua, those particular promises are made universal to everyone who believes. In other words, it's an inclusive particularity. The particularity becomes universal because we receive one another. And this is a beautiful work of art and love of God, that what is particular for one becomes universal for the other. What is universal for the other becomes particular, and then we give and take and we receive one another. So I just want to say, maybe this is from my viewpoint as a Messianic Jew here in Israel, and I see the discussion of who's the chosen people. Is it Christians? Is it Jews? I want to say, look, it all goes together. The Bible talks about a calling for Jewish people, and it talks about a calling for huge nations over the world. They're both true. We love one another, and when you bring those two together, you see the great beauty and the power of God in both particularity and in universality. I hope that blesses you.